I think this is the point in the conference where it's the business meeting on the very last day, and we're grateful to those people who stuck around with us. A reminder that we've got the exciting first inaugural TaxonWorks Together Awards to follow up at the end of this, and then at the very end we'll have a conversation about what's next, so 3 or 4 slides. So I will try to keep this fairly brief. The main point is that we are essentially looking to be transparent, right? So we do a lot here at the Species File Group. We know a lot of people depend on us, and the kind of resources that we have are important to people. And so this meeting and this presentation essentially, or gathering, is your chance to sort of ask the tough questions of us and to get a feel for where we are all collectively as a organization, as a supporting entity, as a bunch of collaborators. So obviously one of the major questions that we get asked and that comes up, and in fact it's really been a roadblock to some folks like Davide's group, is, how long is this project going to last? How long is TaxonWorks, where's the funding? Where's the backing? Is this just going to go away after time? And, we have a really amazing opportunity with the endowment that we have here, and we really want to try to make that as useful to what we feel are digitally underserved communities like taxonomists, like collection managers. So we want to maximize those resources, and we want to be there for people in that regard. And so in very, very brief, essentially what happens, to be fully transparent, is I have conversations with Ed, who manages the interactions between the foundation, our benefactor, and our group here. And I get essentially a thumbs up or down for the year. And I'm very happy to report that all systems are normal. There's no red flags on the horizon, etc. So we look to be good and stable, and I can do the best of I can answer other questions on this to the best of my ability, or get you answers after the fact if you have additional questions about our financial backing here. I want to say just touch very briefly on some of the scope of what we're doing. It's important for others considering joining our community and collaborating with us to get a picture of the scope of what we're doing. So hardware-wise, we run about around 11 servers. That's actually slightly fewer. We got rid of a couple old servers and added a couple new ones this year. Just memory-wise, that's around 1.3 terabytes, and storage space is around 277 terabytes raw. That doesn't include the redundancy that we have. We run sort of backup versions of the data across that limits that total capacity there. All of these servers are housed at an environmentally supported advanced computing building that is not in our building, so we feel like we have pretty good support there, even though we have had issues with some of the environment there in the past. They're not completely impossible, and we know that there will be outages that we just can't control because our servers are sitting in that building. For example, for all of you here who are actively using TaxonWorks, there will be a 2 to 3 day outage sometime as they replace the whole building-wide mega generators that are the backup electrical system. They have to cut everything offline to redo that. That was supposed to happen in May, but that has been delayed indefinitely thanks to Illinois state laws that are looking at environmental impact of those generators. But those kind of outages can happen in our regard. That said, we have amazing uptime. Maybe we should be reporting that. Thanks to Hernan and Dima, Rich, for buying the hardware and managing that. I think we do an incredible job of keeping TaxonWorks up and live. Software-wise, we still have the open source code base. You heard a lot of that being briefly discussed. We have gone through quite a few releases in the last 6 months. Again, this has been a short back-to-back TaxonWorks Together. It's not been a full year, yet we've still done quite a bit. You can track all of those changes there on the issue tracker that's been shared. I'll just reshare that release notes here in that regard. Issues have been fairly stable in the sense of, the overall total, even though they're high, they haven't really changed a lot year to year over time. Oops, sorry, I'm posting these links to Debbie
I
directly.
did it. I fixed
Thanks,
it.
Debbie. So again, I think we've covered a lot of this. There's also a lot of repositories that have spun up. You saw a lot of Jeff's work, and so we're producing a lot of other things in the TaxonWorks ecosystem as well. So we feel pretty good and pretty stable about where we're at for software. Active collaborators. I just wanted to start sharing this at our meetings. Excuse me. Excuse me. This is what you're seeing here are stats where we take a single point in time snapshot and we look at how many people were online, logged in, and doing something in TaxonWorks in the last 24 hours or week or month or year. And you see that 6 months over 6 months is largely the same for a 24-hour period. So we basically have 50 or 60 people every day logged in. That's week round, around 100 people a week. Again, this is all using our single production server. The sandboxes aren't calculated in this, and there is another instance of TaxonWorks, several others live that aren't managed with us. However, the big stat here is in the past 6 months, since the last TaxonWorks together, this number has jumped, and this is really a sign of growth. So we've gone from around 200 to almost 250 users actively jumping on and using the system. And this is, I think, a very excellent indication of growth. It's what is that, 20% year over year. We've created 6 new projects at the species file group level, and we've got another couple, well, we've got many more that are sitting on the door at various different stages. So that's sort of where we're at with respect to our kind of species file group managed instance of TaxonWorks. Remember, there is no one TaxonWorks. You can run TaxonWorks on your desktop. Your organization or administrators can run TaxonWorks. This year, we had a wonderful example of that happening here locally. I think we have a very thriving knowledge base in general. So again, this is looking at statistics at the species file group in production. We've got over almost 80 million records collectively across those data. And remarkably, those are being very actively worked on. So this is not just data that comes and sits there. This is data that's quickly evolving. So almost 20% of those records have been updated in the past 6 months. And thanks to major new projects like AntWeb joining us, we've added a lot of data, right? 14 million, almost 20% added in the last 6 months. One cool thing that we haven't pointed out yet this meeting is that you can track the use of TaxonWorks at a server level or at a very specific project level by coming to stats.taxonworks.org. So I'm just going to leave this up and see who's being rude and not being at our meeting right now. And we'll watch this refresh here. And you see that in the past bit, we've actually pulsed and had changes here. So people are actively curating week over week with these statistics there. So that's a kind of a cool resource. This is also, stats.taxonworks is also an example of how you can build, Jose, it looks like we got a bug. This is how you can build an app on top of the TaxonWorks API. So this provides a nice example of how you might build your own custom application on top of TaxonWorks. Yeah, so Tommy's multitasking. So you're off the hook, Tommy. All right, so that's the knowledge base. Just wanted to highlight the fact that we are very rapidly adding images. We're over 1 million images, which if you think of some of the past NSF supported projects and actually other globally supported projects like Plasi, this is a lot of data. And you'll notice that those in TaxonWorks, we can tie images to everything. I just want to make that plug again. And you see that most images are about a taxon name. And you're saying, how can that be? These 572,000 images are actually the LEP index card catalog. Those images depict taxon names quite literally. The taxon name that is behind the scenes has an image of the CAD card catalog. You can see, of course, that most of the images are otherwise about collection objects. However, they can be tied directly to cell data in the matrix or to taxon concepts themselves. You can take pictures of your collecting event and attach them, or document your matrices or your sort of text content blocks as well. So we're glad to see this growth, and this is one of the compelling sort of metrics that we take to our administrators to show our life there. We've got a growing number of TaxonWorks projects that are focused on natural history collections, and I think there's been a lot of life in the past 6 months. We have at least 6 other collections that are talking with us and seeing if TaxonWorks will be a fit. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, one of which we've added and one of which will be revitalized in this past 6 months. The Paleo collection here is starting to use TaxonWorks at INHS. And this in talks includes some major players that I won't go into details there. So we do think that TaxonWorks is emerging as a compelling digitization solution, and we're happy to sort of support some mid-level collections in this regard. The Florida State Collection of Arthropods has been offline for a very long time, and they're starting to build momentum, for example, in what they're doing there. We've hit some really cool milestones that I think are important to share in the last 6 months. You've heard me mention Tom's name multiple times, and Tom created a full stack feature set, and not just one, but the second one is coming sort of out of the blue. So this was very validating to us in the fact, in terms of how we've presented TaxonWorks as an open source code base, the health of that code base, et cetera, to have somebody like that come in. And I think that's a really nice milestone on the evolution of an open source project, to see something like that being possible and then actually happen. The Evangelista Lab here at University of Illinois worked with their departmental computer infrastructure support to install their own instance of TaxonWorks, and they've been running that. So that was a really nice milestone as well, illustrating that you can, with moderate technical support, host your own instance and multiple projects there. We've also been in talk with 3 independently funded development projects, one in Purdue, the USDA, and then the UCD effort, all of which are funding their own programmers to build their own infrastructure on top of TaxonWorks, so their own websites or their own data formats or data exchange formats. So that, to me, is a very nice health indication of a healthy environment for being expandable, or to that TaxonWorks is catalyzing other development. And AntWeb has gone live, and this is, as you heard Brian maybe on the first year mention, that this is a 30-year-old community that was leaders in some of the original digitization and websites, and we're very grateful to have them on board and to take their knowledge and resources and merge their decades of experience into TaxonWorks has made some really big differences to us. So 3 nice milestones for us. I do want to take just 2 minutes to point out, for transparency wise, that the species file group gets a lot of people coming to talk to us to say, how do I start engaging with you and collaborating with you? And we've been asked to sort of document how we prioritize who we work with. And I think it's fairly straightforward in how we do that, but it's a complex sort of multi-factored conversation. Essentially, we look at how your project fits semantically. Does it actually make sense to be in TaxonWorks? Your team, the community that you're bringing with the project, for example, how often your community has participated with us. All of you being here, that's all really important to us. And the fact that you're participating in our events and our weekly meetings and asking questions and challenging us means that you're engaged, and that's the kind of folks that we would love to collaborate with. We talk about expectations. What do you actually need to get done because of job reasons or grant reasons, and make sure that we can meet those. We have to manage a lot of those expectations. Timing, how will our interaction and collaboration time out? When do we need to be done something next week versus 4 years? We do try to spend specific resources and time migrating important legacy data sets. So for example, Systema Diptorum is on our radar now, and we've invested a lot of time without explicit funding and resources to help see that move forward, because we feel that that's historically important and it's impacted a lot of people's lives. And of course, if you bring accompanying skills, which can be vision, excellent conversations like Elspeth's, programming contributions, or just we like the potential of interacting, then that can sort of help us make a decision about who and how to collaborate. So we just wanted to share some of those things with you in case you're thinking about joining the community. You should join it. You're all here. You're all interested. We'd love to have you here. So we've had a number of conversations too, just to wrap up, about how we can support external funding and collaboration. And we have a document that further sort of, if we serve a TaxonWorks project for you off of our own servers, we ask you to read this. TaxonWorks in production. I'll paste it in the chat here. And this is not a formal agreement. We really treat everyone as collaborators. So when you come and join the species file group, you think of it as two labs joining up and working together in a lab that's full of colleagues and friends and collaborators. We do not make this a formal agreement to the best of our abilities. So when you join, we ask that you read this document, and all you say is, I've read it. And that's to basically be transparent about what we are and are not doing. And at the bottom of this, you see the frequently asked question. It says, does the species file group charge for its use? And we say no. However, we have some follow-up questions, and you'll see there's a date here from about a year old that needs to be updated. And that date basically indicated when we would have our next conversation about whether or not we need to charge for use of species file group, or do we need to charge in part or in full? You know that groups like Specify have gone through this transition in the past. And if we grow, we have to be very open about realistically who we can support and how we can support. So in essence, what I'm saying right now, the sort of top level decision is we're still not going to support, and we're going to push the conversation that we indicated here as happening in 2023 back to TaxonWorks 2026. And we'd like to open up that conversation to you as a whole here at the end as to whether or not we should support, whether or not we should ask for money for supporting projects like that. I do want to point out that we've had 4 collaborators in the past 6 months submit external grants to NSF with supporting components for a species file group, and one that was migrated recently. It was a data migration. And just pointing out that for those of you thinking about writing us into grants, we'd love to do that. We don't really have the manpower to have grants by our personal internal team out for development, for coding features. We will support features, but for example, you can't buy my time for 2 months in terms of me actively coding new features. You can absolutely join with us and get us to support building endpoints in the background, helping training you on what the code base looks like, etc. And so that discussion is one we'd love to hit. So if you're hiring an external support developer, know that these can be upwards of easily $60,000 a year up to about $120,000 a year to work those in for full time for a year. You're going to get a lot done for that amount of money. We do some data migration internally. Dmitry Dmitriev has done a lot of that. And that's going to come out around $15,000 or so per month to move a major legacy project forward if we need a sort of script-based format to do that. So that may give you some ideas of what other collaborators have supported on. We have heard a couple of people that have gone to NSF and other people and said, well, we only asked for a little bit, and in retrospect, we wish we would have asked for more. So if you are writing a grant, be ambitious in your scope and provide a number. It's the idea that counts, and the funding can come after that. I want to point out one last other thing is that last year we created a donate button that goes into the foundation that helps us support and really catalyze what we do. So that option is available out there to help support us. And I think that's it. TaxonWorks Together, the next one will be in our new home at May in 1 year from now. So we moved from the fall last year for over a short period of time to May this year. And this kind of meeting will be fully virtual again. And again, we'll be looking at, should we host companion TaxonWorks Together in-person style workshops as well. So we may have some quick time for questions. And if not, we'll move to the exciting new inaugural awards. But yeah, while we're getting that set up, let's look for questions. Debbie, did you want to share the slide deck for the awards while I'm looking, or should I try to pull that up?
Either way,
Yeah,
you
Fritz.
could happy to do that.
Yeah,
If you,
so
I mean,
why don't you go ahead and sit? I'll sort of answer Fritz, and then maybe we'll look at you to set up the slide in the
yeah,
background.
sure.
Okay, thank you.
Let's talk. Yeah.
So Fritz asked, what are the risks in some collections, research, etc. start using TaxonWorks now, and then in 2026, there's a decision the need of monetization. What would happen to those that have already had a lot of information and time invested in and can't afford the cost? So Fritz, actually, I'm going to reshare, and in fact, I think it's a great question. If you read that FAQ, that is not something we want to do, right? And I think that gets to a bigger question. Where's my share here? Bigger question that we've started to try to address in general that's not specific to TaxonWorks, right? Like there's tons of buy-in in the web-based kind of ecosystem where you start getting something for free. Google does this all the time. That's why you should never build your application in a Google framework, and then they'll just cut it off, right? So it's a really important question, and we've started to answer that in part by creating some documentation here, and we really need to do that a little bit more comprehensively. But at least in the last 6 months, we've started to add some information about migrating to TaxonWorks. And some of the answer to your question comes out here of this documentation. One thing I wanted to point out is this checklist at the very beginning, right? So if you're asking about coming into TaxonWorks, this is a generic checklist, and you should ask this of anybody, not just TaxonWorks, before you start, right? And the number one question about before you start is, how do I get out, right? How long do I need to use the platform? What platforms can I migrate to? What data formats does the new platform let me export to? Do I understand those formats? Do others understand them? What might I lose? What might I gain? How long will this take, etc. So, Fritz, there are obviously risks with everything, and we can't. I think we're very stable, and I think that we're fairly selective about groups, and we think we're in good shape. I think we've also invested time and money into making it so that you can get out of your platform. For example, if you're a collection, you can export in Darwin Core. And if you're careful about how you manage your data and ensure that that Darwin Core contains lossless information, then you can go into Symbiota or any other platform that reasonably should be able to import Darwin Core as well as TaxonWorks does. So I think it's a critically important question that you raise. Everybody needs to ask it when you go into any platform. I think in our sense, that's part of the conversation we're going to have with you to try to feel that out as to whether or not it's a good fit. We try to ensure that you can get your data out as SQL, as CSV tables, as Darwin Core files. You can get those to GBIF that can act as intermediates or checklist banks or other intermediate repositories. So in some ways, we feel that we're a lot safer than other possible solutions that may not provide those same kind of exports in as well. But yes, it's a big challenge and a risk.
I think there is a reasonable question there too about the model, for example, specified chose, and Fritz, it sounds like you might be familiar with that, but they chose a sort of a sliding scale fee approach. I
Mhm.
think Arctos does something very similar. So there would be potentially, you could see in the future, a conversation along those lines. And
Yeah.
this goes along with remembering that this is a longer conversation to think about. Again, I brought up in a session yesterday, I think, sort of the historical aspects of when did digitizing actually come to collections and start being like an added thing that they're doing. And that's an added cost in many respects, right? Staffing, skills, equipment. Um, so asking these kinds of questions also goes along with thinking about, is there any such thing as a free lunch? So this point about thinking of it at the beginning, there were people in earlier projects, and we're going back in my brain now to like 2012 to let's say 2015, 16, where all of a sudden, people said, "Oh, sorry, this is not going to be free anymore." And people were freaking out. And it's like, something we could also continue to do is expose a bit more, perhaps, the costs, and Matt got at some of those in his slides, what it actually costs to do the kind of things that we're doing. So it isn't really free. And the endowment, of course, will benefit from, and the scope to what we can do benefits from if people are writing us into their grants and including us. We understand about funding situation, and not everybody will, their funding will vary. It's trying to be careful about people thinking of things as permanently being free. I think that's
And I will say that we want to learn from Arctos and Specify as well, right? Now we're at the generation where we've had several generations of these tools come forward, emerge, mature. The frameworks have emerged, mature. So in some ways, there's a lot of nice foundational work that Specify, Arctos has done in terms of funding models, and we feel good about being able to think about those or having those as references in the future. So I think we're gonna try to keep things as collaborative. We really try to treat everything as a collaboration to the best of our ability, and that that idea and that mindset makes it known that if you're coming from a granting framework, that money runs out at some point, right? You're
Yep.
aware of that. So that's just a conversation that we talk about. There is no, and we spend a lot of money. That's right. Debbie says this isn't really free. This is a collaboration. We're excited to work with you. You bring things to the table, we bring things to the table, and we see where we can go from there.
I think another aspect that's a bigger outlier, but it's important here. I have no idea what this CHIPS funding is going to result in. Some of you will have heard of that, and I apologize if it's new. I can't tell you a lot, but I know that there's a new line item in the federal budget that's going to be looking at money going to collections. I just don't know anything about how it's like it was an unfunded mandate like a year ago. And now I think there might actually be money in that bucket, but how that's going to work, I don't know.
All right, Debbie, should we award some? Should we have some happy time?
Sounds like it. Matt, and do you want me to share the slides? Is that what you were saying before? Or
I guess I could do it too. Let me see here.
I can send you the link if you
Yeah,
have
maybe
it up.
send me the link. Sure, I'll see if I can pull it up.
Okay. So let me make sure. Oops. That. And there's the link.
Okay. We planned this awards, and we really hope that they don't exclude folks. Next year, we're going to provide an opportunity for your community to nominate your community members. We can only see so much, and so we really hope that this first inaugural version of this event is celebratory. And if you feel left out, if you let us know, and we will celebrate your work, etc. as well. So we're excited to do this, and this highlights a little bit of our milestones. I want to just get this presenting slideshow maybe, but now I have to share. Sorry, let me just get set up. How can I do this without showing you the winners? Spoiler alert.
Yeah, you have to
Let's see, share.
pick share first.
Yeah.
Pick, yeah. And Zoom,
Everybody
for all of you
close
who've
their
seen
eyes.
they've
Close their
changed the UI a little bit too, so it takes a second to find the
Where's
share
my
button,
browser here?
depending on your
Okay.
options at the bottom.
All right. Okay, everybody close their eyes for 30 seconds. Okay, you can look. Okay, Debbie, maybe we'll take turns reading off. What do you think?
Sure, sounds fun.
Okay, so our fifth year of TaxonWorks Together, our first TaxonWorks Together inaugural awards.
And our first year with the new logo.
And our first year with the new logo, yeah.
Yes.
Down here, thanks, Jose.
Yes.
Yeah. So this year's awardees will all get a T-shirt of your choice of color. There'll be 2 or 3 colors maybe, and we'll ask for your size and get your shipping information after the meeting. All right, so we've got a bunch of categories here. We're just going to sort of step them through, and we just want to point out that we didn't exclude our internal members from consideration here. Those people that have a star beside them are a little bit more internal, and so they're going to be like lifetime achievement awards. They only get them once, and then you're never going to, you won't see them in the future awards there. But we did sort of keep it internal at a little bit. And full disclosure, this is Debbie and I's brainstorming. So anybody who feels left out, it is our fault, not anybody else on our team.
Fully, yes.
Okay, so maybe we'll take turns. I'll read the award, and then you announce, and then you read the award, and I announce.
Oh, let's try it, Matt.
All right. So the glue. Our first award is the glue. TaxonWorks does a lot, but how do we get at it? A person who contributed to linking, attaching outer processes to inner workings, and you may have a hint of who that was based on this morning's talks. Ta-da!
Jeff Ower and Roger Burks.
Yes.
Jeff Ower is here, and he gives us the wrappers you were talking about. He also works on the catalog of life. So he is a glue connecting our different tools and information together. Yay, go Jeff. And Matt, you want to tell us about Roger?
Yeah, Roger has been a longtime collaborator. He now works for the FDA, I think, but he builds the external UCD website, ucd.calcid.org. And so he's been one of the first people to build a website off of it. We can get you the link in that. So a big thanks to Roger Burks as well, who can't be here because of federal job requirements.
So brief, wait, whoa. So I put the link in the chat, y'all. So this is an example for those of you who also asked about APIs and are learning. So in other words, the link I just put in the chat, if all that data is coming from inside TaxonWorks. So they built their own public pages. That's what Matt's saying. So I just wanted to make that clear via the API.
All right, next.
The archivist. So here, we're talking about and bringing back up what Matt just referenced. If you need to get into software, are you thinking about how do you get out of that software? How do you think about that data and its long-term value and its longevity? How do you ensure that you do your best due diligence to make sure that data sticks around? And that takes some thought.
Okay, and our winner is Samuel Brown. Samuel, you had a statement earlier on. I think you're here in the chat. Is Samuel here? But at one of our meetings, is Samuel here?
He was here yesterday.
Oh, he might have dropped off. That's too bad. But Samuel had a wonderful observation and statement in one of our prior meetings and it had a series of questions and interacted with us to make sure that he could export his project in SFG.production and run it locally on his own host. So he is doing the due diligence, and his exact words were, I want to make sure that this project lives on is after SFG goes down. And so he followed the guidelines and had that awareness and did the backing up and is supporting his Beetle community by taking that initiative. So Samuel, thank you, and thank you for being here. Okay, so the regular, we have a lot of group meetings. We meet every Wednesdays, and those are all voluntary, and you didn't have to be there. So at a group meeting, someone who didn't have to be there but was, like the person at the bar stool at the bar, but not the bar and not the stool. So, and the winner of this first regular is?
Two winners, Jim Woolley from the Universal Chalcedonia database we were just speaking about, and Heidi Hopkins, who I know is here at the moment.
Yeah, I think, is Jim still here too?
I don't think so.
I'd like to thank my agent and
Oh, you are here, Jim. Yay.
Jim, yeah, thank you. Jim has been with us forever from the get-go and extremely regular and led a lot of the documentation. And Heidi is jumping in and answering questions. Yeah, so thanks, Heidi. Who's your agent, by the way? I might need a new one. Okay. Jim, you're also lifetime award, so you don't get to win this again. with that star there. And Heidi, you probably should have a lifetime star too.
Mm.
Okay, so the
Next up
next one
is
is
the I, right? So this would be somebody who is helping us give you the user interface and the connections between the different functions in the interface in the way you've come to know, expect, and love inside TaxonWorks, and giving us things like our new logo, I believe. I think I just let the cat out of that bag.
yeah, it's also in the future, we could imagine it as somebody who does, interpretive dance or art or something that has a really cool look or feel that involves, TaxonWorks or and the biodiversity community around it. So it's not just, graphics, it could be the art and the look and the aesthetic look and feel. And it should be no surprise that this year it's a lifetime award for our interface designer, Jose Luis. And Jose, congratulations. You make everything look better. And we're super grateful for having you on board. And you designed the t-shirts last night, so you know what you're getting. All right, next we have The Monk. And this is a contributor who kept history alive by migrating data forward. You heard me mention that we're particularly interested in some of those, decades-long curation events and efforts. And this is the person who has seen those efforts and is spending the time and effort to actually migrate them into TaxonWorks or migrate them forward to get them a new home and a new archive, to get them off of the database on the old Windows machine, to get them into the hands of somebody who can act on them in the future. And
the winner is
yeah,
Dmitry Dmitriev, who spends a lot of time, clever skills, lots of data transformation skills, getting data from different formats out of different platforms into our platform, going back and forth with the people who are providing that data, and ensuring what's happening with that data is what we need it to be.
yeah. Also a lifetime award. Dmitry can't win this again.
Next, the hygienist. Wow. So looking at the stats that we have access to, looking who inside to see who has been touching a lot of data to update it.
Yeah, so we've got two winners this year. Lily Hart gets a lifetime, and Donald Holborn, who was editing the LEP index. Both of you, thanks. You touched an immense amount of records in the system, and you've added a lot of data fidelity, so to speak. So thank you for your efforts and your day-to-day feedback. And Lily's feedback was directly resulted in the field synchronizer task, so that's important to be there. All right. Next, we have the grinder. Similarly, the day in, day out, this person spent a huge amount of time in TaxonWorks during the last 6 months, the TaxonWorks to TaxonWorks year. So yeah, we can, on the stats there, you can see how many collective years of TaxonWorks time, of people's time has been spent in TaxonWorks. And we'd like to just acknowledge that some people do a ton of work in that regard. And
Wow.
Yeah.
4 winners we have here. Yeah. Marina Novoselova, Matt, who is she?
Yuri might know who that is. Working on Dimitri's project and a bunch of curation projects. Yeah.
Cool. And our very local here, Michelle Kohler, working with Tommy and the insect collection. And Mark
is at the Florida collection. He's digitizing a whole bunch of specimens down there at the what's the acronym
Florida
there?
State Collection of Arthropods.
Yep.
FSCA.
Just grinding away. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then Nikolai Unikov. Is that entomines again? Is that?
Yeah, Coleopterist. Yep.
Yep.
Doing a ton of work to update the weevil nomenclature with the weevil team there. So these people just spend hours and hours, in fact, days and days in TaxonWorks curating.
I think Nikolai's an example of is setting up collaboration and sharing too, right? Samantha brought him up that he let her into his data set to learn and add, right?
Yeah,
yes,
Jennifer
thanks,
too.
Jennifer, for
Yeah.
confirming. Yes. So he giving this example of expanding and collaborating across projects and helping people learn the software. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Next up, the chemist. So,
Are you reading this one? Who's reading
You
this one?
are, I
Oh,
think.
okay. Catalyzing growth in the TaxonWorks community via communication and interaction with others from local to global. And the winner is Debbie Paul, our very own lifetime achievement. We really have to give her some award. So thank you, Debbie, for all your work. And you can never get this award again. So
Here,
somebody needs to step up next year and catalyze growth as well. But a big
sure.
thank you for everything you do here.
Thank you.
All right. This is me now. The bold. No, this is you reading.
Yeah. So the bold. So keeping a lot of pieces going and together and connecting them. So somebody who first looked inside the door and went, can I really do this? Do I know enough? Can I make this work for what we need? And maybe feeling some concern at first. And we're very glad they're here, I think. And they are, yes, Holger Braun, Matt, from where?
Argentina. That's the orthopterist curator. Yeah.
And our Davide, who's here,
Yeah.
I think, with us right now.
Yeah. Davide
So,
had lots of questions, but one got going, and then had lots of questions about taxon pages, but pushed through, and they both make amazing contributions to our community right now, data and technical and answering. So thank you so much, both.
They're making contributions in that twofold way, right? To TaxonWorks and the software and their own communities, right? They are.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, big time. Thank you both. Okay, the patients. So they saw vision and potential, patiently awaited for it to emerge, gutted out transition, and we are happily garden in TaxonWorks. Of course, they're pointing out a couple odd weeds here and there. So the winner of this year's patient is
Brian Fisher and Ant Webb. And for those of you who've been sticking us with that for the last, 2 years, Matt? Sticking with us on our Wednesday sessions, you occasionally see the very carefully thought out questions that Brian asks and the features he's asking for and all the work and support he brought in his outreach to get what he needs from TaxonWorks.
I don't know if I see Michelle and Michelle from Antweb. Is that Michelle from Antweb Winecraft? No, I don't think so. Yeah, no. So Brian and his team will get t-shirts to all of them there. Okay.
The academic. So who out there has been able to and is looking forward to doing more, I suspect, contribute scientific papers that were facilitated by TaxonWorks and the tools that TaxonWorks provides.
And we
the
really hope,
we
hope that this grows like mad in the future.
Sure.
And the winner are Samantha, who led off our TaxonWorks Together earlier on Monday, and Jennifer for their paper, and Kojin Kanda and Andrew Johnston, both of who built Beetle catalogs and published them, and we can share those DOIs. And so we're thankful for those two pioneers, two groups of pioneering authors for demonstrating what you can do in TaxonWorks and how you can get real important publications out of the world. So thank you both, or all. All right.
Ooh. The hacker.
So
Is it your turn? Go,
this
Matt.
person is, codes complicated stuff. And I don't remember who we put here. Yeah.
Dash. So Dash Peter. So that goes hand in hand with what we just said about Antweb. So Brian Fisher wanted some features added and needed that to work for him to use TaxonWorks. And he found funding to hire Dash, who then added functionality that now we're all benefiting from. Those of you who've tried the Darwin Core checklist importer, and also, what else, Matt?
Largely the importer was a lot of the work. Yeah, a lot of the new features on the Darwin Core importer, new fields, extensions to it. So Dash was responsible for a lot of the engine behind the scenes after Jose and Hernan built the UI and the general approach. Yeah, greatly expanded it. Yeah. So yeah, we were really happy to have Dash, and we hope to see him some more this summer if we can wrangle him down. All right, I think we're getting pretty close.
Yes, we are. The tutor.
Yeah.
So how can we help people learn? How can we share our skills? The kind of things that people ask all the time, who can show me this or where can I find that information? So this person did a lot around helping people learn TaxonWorks.
And that person this year goes to Tommy McElrath, and you're a lifetime winner of this one, Tommy. But we appreciated your presentations in Spanish. We know that you've trained some 30 or 40 students. You've done workshops, and you've written standard operating procedures. You've presented 3 or 4 times here while your kids are sick at home. So we greatly appreciate all of what you've done in terms of educating the broader community. Thanks very, very much, Tommy. All right, our very last one this year. You'll have a hint of who this might be if you listen to a lot of our conversations, but this is the mysterious benefactor community. And this is the person or organization who completely unexpectedly contributed in ways that had a huge impact and still remain mysterious. And this year's winner is
Tom Klein. Thank you very much, Tom. We can't thank you enough, and we hope to do more with you.
Yeah, Tom did the key interface and is working on the Nexus importer, and we're very grateful for your time here, Tom. So somehow we'll have to figure out how to anonymously get you a t-shirt if you so choose to take one. So that is our awards. Next year, we're going to announce it a little bit more. We're going to open it up to some community-sponsored ones and nominations, I think. And if you have other category ideas, etc., let us know. And we hope you enjoyed it. We had fun thinking about it. Debbie, we're going to have to make a note for next year that these awards take more time than we thought they would take for scheduling-wise, but that's okay. Yeah, so thanks again, everyone. Just a small slate, and we hope you don't feel left out. We will have opportunities to get you t-shirts if you are not on this list coming up as well, and other swag and gear will hopefully be more prominent as we move forward. All right, yeah, so we mentioned other awards, potentially new categories, and other nominations there too. We have one more what's next little session that we can extend as long as we want. We may have to extend this a little bit more into a workshop, this kind of session next year. We'll see, maybe an afternoon follow-up. But the idea is we just wanted to give you a taste of what we're thinking about coming up next in the next year from May to May, essentially. And again, we want to point out that what's next will definitely depend on you as collaborators in many different ways. And there's still a lot of open-ended things that are going to come out of this. I want to mention that essentially we're moving into a couple of very broad themes: improvements for digitization, improvements like for specimen digitization in general. Our other major theme is, now that we have a relatively mature set of tools, we need to help you get different kinds of publications out of TaxonWorks. For example, more formats of monography, but also things like, interactive keys and the key engines. So how do we get you publishing now? So that's another big theme. And the other major theme then is integration. For example, how are we going to tie in external APIs or tools so that we can take advantage of other people's work and other resources? So these are the three themes that will sort of drive us in the next couple of years, I think you'll see us under. I'm presenting a big kind of blob of what specifically we're going to do. People often ask, do we have a roadmap? And so you can think of this as a roadmap, but it's tricky to tease out exactly, which of these we're going to do. This is not, it's a non-linear process. But we can break it down into a couple of categories, right? We know we have 750 open issues, and some of the themes that we're going to focus on in those issues are related to maintenance of the code, adding semantics to the code, functionality, and then tuning or making existing pieces of the code work better, right? And some of these things are blockers for others. So for example, there's a long outstanding request for sounds and conveyances. But before we do this, we know we need to do this step that's going to start being worked on in October. So there's definitely not like we're going to start here and do this and then do this and then do this and then do this. There's an interplay. But this pretty much sums up this area here what we're thinking of next year. We're going to upgrade our core tooling to Rails 7 or 8. We're going to change how we handle binary images to make it a little bit more distributed and add some cool functionality there. We're going to focus on models. I think certainly you're going to see anatomical parts, if I'm going to promise something, before TaxonWorks Together next year. And I hope to have sounds and conveyances in place depending on this going as well. Again, all of these are possible contributions. And you'll notice that thanks to Jose's work, we've got field occurrences from the last year done, and thanks to Tom's effort, we have keys done there. So we crossed off a couple. Thanks, Lily, for being around too. Functionality-wise, we know we have this general functionality uniquify, which is still going to be a major challenge. We need to make field occurrences sortable and filterable. Jose is exploring some containerization work while he's waiting for improving things like adding things like the sounds and stuff. So being able to stub out 96 well plates and that kind of thing. Project-wide data, this was quality, but we want to be able to continue to support looking at our data across projects, not just for individual records, improvements to exports, media extensions, etc. And then spending some time to get individual wrappers to be able to produce our multi-entry keys and bifurcating keys into taxon pages, for example. And so I think you'll see some nice movement in the next year on that front. We need to optimize some back-end indexing a lot. We did some nice optimization in how the matrices we're building. Matrix import, I think, should actually be over here. This is the work that Tom is working on. And that's largely complete. Jim asked the question on that, so I kind of crossed that out. And we need to really improve our documentation on the Darwin Core importer to indicate the sort of complexities of that import process. So that's kind of what we're looking for in general at a broad level. You heard us mention that we're also going to spend a lot of time next year facilitating independent growth with those various groups that have funding and that may have potential funding coming out. We're going to try to act as facilitators in that regard, influencing that modular reusable development ideas, and providing a lot of support with back-end API support and better documentation. There have been movements on the horizon that have to do with things that intersect DNA. We know its importance, and there's a couple of things that may emerge. The AntWeb folks have asked if we can turn the collection object filter into basically a stubbed out table that they could use to help build their bold voucher templates, and we see that as quite possible. The anatomical part object that we mentioned is going to be really key in provenance tracking for extracts. And we think that containerization, like being able to stub out wells that you can then go and do DNA related work, might be on the horizon as well. There are some big elephants in the room that, we need to be clear are still out there and looming over TaxonWorks, and they may reveal that we need to be funded. We talked about the geographical area refactor. Should we move to geoboundaries or overture? That's going to be a real challenge. We could use a postdoc maybe for 2 years to help us do that transition. skunkworks, this is sort of like the experimental side of things versus foundational work. We could be dropping in everything and just starting to work with large language models and ChatGPT and making that solve all our problems. However, that's very risky in a lot of different ways. And so we have to sort of constantly balance the risk reward of doing key features that are important versus a lot of experiment. We also know time and time again, we've heard that there's cross-project integration, like being able to import projects into other projects or components of those projects. And we know that this would have a major impact if we can take some, if we can make some progress here in a lot of different workflows and planning and projects. So these are three of the big challenges that we want to acknowledge as being real issues for us. So that's it. That's all we wanted to present for what's next. I think we will open it up for at least 10 minutes for discussion, so you can grill us on what's next, etc., to wrap things up. So do you have questions about anything that we've followed up with? Aha, Chris, thanks very much for the H3 test suite. Perfect. I'm Yeah, wonderful to see that you're working with that. Aha, I like it. I like it. Yeah, should we do this? Oh, I hope it's okay that I shared this. Yeah, you shared the link, so it's okay. Yeah. Thank you, Heidi, for your support. Any questions about what's next in the next year?
Well, there's
Any recommendations, ideas for next year? Yeah.
So one thing we can follow up on an earlier conversation, Chris is sharing what the Uber H3 test site for map indexing. And I think by our, he means IDIG Bio. Is that right, Chris? Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Give me a
Hi,
second.
Chris. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just the our demo site for H3 map index. Developed that a few years ago, and I think it prompted maybe a GBIF pipelines feature um, initiative from I think Tim Robertson, but we haven't carried it forward at this point.
Chris, is that code repo available?
Yeah, it's on I think it's in our GitHub in IDIG Bio under H3 portal.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, welcome.
Fritz asks, any plans for phylogenetic tree integration? Like, imagine something like providing base phylogenetic trees and then filtering records like a specific locality, and so map them to crop version on the base tree. Fritz, not immediately. We actually built in Nexus support, Nuix support in MX, a precursor to TaxonWorks. So there is potential there to move that code forward and store very simple trees that we could then, yeah, like you said, do very simple operations on. So that would not require, I'm trying to think if that's careful. I have to carefully say that. Because we have OTU relationships in place, we may be able to co-opt a new class of that. So it might just be the Nuix processing that we could port forward from MX. So it's not impossible. It's probably not a priority for us in the core teams group, but it's definitely an opportunity that a person with some skills could take advantage of. Yeah. We can point you to the code base for that. Feel free to open an issue on the issue tracker where we could summarize the steps that might be needed there. Yeah, we'd also like, if you want to provide any feedback, was the meeting too long, too short, too exhausting? Feel free to chime in.
Just right.
Yeah, just right.
It was
Thank you.
perfect. I like it.
That's good to hear, Maria Mona. Thanks very much, as always, Nikki, for being here and all your wonderful insights. Very greatly appreciated. I got to confess that in putting this one together, you have many comments and emails that are just sitting there waiting to be responded to that I felt quite guilty about, that kind of got lost in the rush after the transition. So just let it be known that we very much appreciate your contributions here. Yeah, there you see one of those fronts from Jim is the cross integration of the UCD Calcidoid data and ScaleNet, and you heard Greg Wilson talking throughout the meeting here too. Or Greg, is it Wilson?
Gregory.
Gregory.
Is it
Gregory.
Evans? Is it Evans? Greg
Yeah,
Evans?
was obviously
Evans,
using that as
yeah.
well. Yeah, Greg Evans. Yeah. Thanks, Jennifer, for being here. Okay, should we wrap it, Debbie?
I think so.
I think so. Thanks, everyone. We will see you next Wednesday at our support meeting. Debbie, you're not going to be around here next Wednesday. You're going to be
I
at the
think-
BHL meeting.
Yeah, so for those of you who are still listening to the hangers on, several of us so Jeff and Dimitri Mozerin and myself are going to the BHL meeting. I think Jeff and Dimitri, you guys are presenting. So the tools that we build, that DEMA builds, I should say, and Jeff, I think you've contributed, am I understanding that right, to helping BHL? Yes, you are presenting. You can tell what you're going to present instead of me. What are you going to talk about?
So we work with BHL on a scientific name index, and also we made a sort of enhancement to BHL where you can find nomenclatural events, you can find um, papers about a particular name, including like all taxon synonymy, not just one name. But the main thing is we do want to improve significantly quality of name finding and try to make it like we hope that we can do it like almost as good as a human person uh, who knows nomenclature, taxonomy. So that's like our plans, how to do it, what can we do to improve name finding and so on.
Thanks, Dimitri. So that's where we're headed. And we
Yeah.
do have plans for those of you. We'll see you at the Spinach and Tadwig meeting in Okinawa. We'll see us there. And Matt or somebody's showing us. So if you want to join us, all kinds of ways, our page at speciesfilegroup.org and the events page will tell us, when the meetings are, how you can join our list serve to get meeting updates, how you can join us on Wednesdays, where to find us on Slack. It's all on that one page that Matt has then shared there in the chat.
Yeah.
So it makes it easy to stay in touch and to get back together with us to follow up on some of the things we've talked about here.
Yeah, so the final wrap, big thanks to Jeff Orr and all the rest of the Species File group who supported this effort technically and otherwise. Huge thanks to all of you who have remained. We're dwindling down. We hope to see you in the days to come and at TaxonWorks Together 2025.